Well, depending on where you are, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to Preventing Lawyer Burnout, and a discussion, and for some of you probably had an introduction to peak performance. My name is Mark Metzger. I am an attorney and adjunct practice advisor with Atticus. I have been practicing law for a little over 33 years now, and I've been working with my own Atticus advisor since 2011. So my often told joke is that if I've been writing these people checks since 2011, one of two things is true. Either what I'm learning from them makes a difference, or I am a moron. Hopefully by the end of this, you'll be able to decide for yourselves which one of those is more likely true than the other. In 2015 or 16, my coaches persuaded me to go through a training process, and I became the first of what is now a small army of adjunct practice advisors, which, like adjunct law professors, are Atticus customers who are also practicing law. So my full-time job is the practice of law in suburban Chicago. And as an add-on to that, because it is of interest to me and something I find to be fun and engaging, I work with lawyers to build and grow their practices and work with them in Atticus programs. Speaking of Atticus programs, I don't know how many of you are aware of this, but we do have a podcast that's hosted by Steve Riley, one of the founders of one of the leaders of the company, and the creator of the practice growth program, and a number of other things that we have that we offer in Atticus, and it is available on any number of different platforms. There's a new episode every week where Steve interviews some extremely successful lawyers to kind of tease out what is the secret sauce behind their growth and their practice. And it's a really engaging, fun discussion. I'm sure that to a certain extent, I'm colored by the fact that I know so many of these people. And so it's kind of fun for me to hear other aspects of that. But I think there's actual, useful information that comes here. So that's not why you came here today. Why you came here today is to discuss this burnout to breakthrough model that we're going to share with you, and to discuss lawyer burnout and change your perception, to change your mindset about how you look at burnout and how you look at how you avoid burnout. And we're going to introduce you to this concept called peak performance and show you that it can have a positive influence on your practice. So that is our intention for the day. But we begin with this, at some level, I think, sad model that most of us in small law firms, and for that matter, even in some medium-sized law firms, we end up kind of playing the role of a master juggler. And nobody ever taught us to juggle. So we're inefficient jugglers at that. But, for example, we juggle with the stress of our cases. Sometimes we wake up in the middle of the night worried about some of our cases or new ideas, or, oh my God, I forgot, thus and such. And those are moments of stress. There are the stressful moments if you have any kind of court-related component to your practice of what is the judge going to schedule me for? And, am I going to be unreasonable are they going to be reasonable on deadlines? Are they going to overlap on vacation? And, I've got all of these court-related deadlines, and I've got all these clients clamoring for information. That's what we mean by stress of the cases. But because we're special little creatures, we decided to go own and run our own law firms. We also get to enjoy the stress of being a business owner. So that means we get to worry about things like, do we have enough work? Is everybody busy enough? Or God forbid, are people too busy and things are piling up on their desks and they're not getting done? Things go to certain team members' desks to die because we haven't designed processes or procedures that allow us to either use technology or use a good workflow pattern to move things along for clients in an efficient manner that delivers a profitable result. And then, much like, I don't know if you remember back in the early 2000s when The Sopranos was first on television, I think that the way most of the advertisements ran is they would show a picture of Tony Soprano, and they would show a couple of mobsters, and they would show his wife and his kids. And I think the tagline was, if one family doesn't kill him, the other one will. And that's what we mean by the stress of your life that you juggle, because there's that old Dickens phrase that the law is a jealous mistress. And in Atticus, we often say that your law practice will consume as much of your available time and your available cash flow as you're willing to give it. it will happily consume all of that and more, and ask for more of both the cash and your time. And so, a lot of us end up in this really sort of strange role where, we talk about work-life balance and trying to achieve that, and to try to use that as a means of achieving some stasis and some comfort and just a sense of control in our lives. But there is the stress of the family and the need to pay attention to that, to pay the family bills, to spend time with family members. And all of it is a function of the business and the stress of the cases. And we just learn to juggle. And sometimes our juggling skills are matched by our excuse skills, because occasionally some of the things we're juggling will splat and hit the ground. And then we have to finesse the fact that happened while we pick it up and throw it back into the mess with everything else. But, we live in a really strange, kind of interesting profession. If you have a court piece in your practice, that there's times that you'll go to gather in the courtroom waiting for the judge to arrive. And most of the conversation in the room is often lawyers trying to one-up one another on whose practice is killing them more. And it's a function of discussing the juggling and the stress in all those different components of our lives. But consider this. How often do you see your county or your state, or for even that matter, the ABA, doing a bar journal article with someone on the cover who has left the practice of law? We are celebrating the fact that they escaped to become a chef or something else. I mean, it's kind of the ultimate expression of, some people just can't take all the heat in the kitchen, and so they seek a different kitchen. But we've kind of sentenced ourselves to this idea that, well, we have to do this. This is how it works. And I'm here to tell you, it doesn't. There is a sane way to do all of this and to manage the stress of the cases and the business and your regular life without sacrificing one of the others to make that happen. But it requires a shift in your mindset and an attention and an intention. So attention and intention to make a change. We got into this mess, by the way, of juggling everything because we bought into the notion that the best defense is always a good offense. And so we constantly add new, juggling pins to the mix, or balls or chainsaws or whatever it is you feel like you're juggling, precisely because we just feel like that's what's expected of us. Everybody expects us to get more. It's why most of us lost our nights and weekends, because at some point we needed more time. So we would work later, and the weekends then became time for us to work. And those 10 or 12 days a year that a lot of other businesses, take off, those Monday holidays, a lot of lawyers look at that and go, holiday, schmoliday, I need to work. And, that's just extra time to work, because we adopted this philosophy that the solution was just to work harder. And there are better and different ways to do this. And one of those is by investing in your peak performance. So let me ask you to think about a fable that you were all exposed to in your youth. And there's a key character in one of these fables that is the golden goose that lays golden eggs. I suspect you all remember that. So think for a second what you would do if you actually had a golden goose that laid golden eggs. My question for you is, if you had a goose that could lay golden eggs for you, and remember, these are not just, gold colored eggs. They are gold. They're solid gold eggs. It's, it is the chicken equivalent of a money printing press, except it prints gold eggs. So if you had some goose that could lay golden eggs for you and take care of your financial needs, let me ask you a couple questions about that. Would you overwork the goose? Would you require it to work 16, 18, 20 hours a day? Probably not. Would you feed it crap? Or would you, find the highest quality goose feed that Ralston Purina or anybody else might happen to make? Or God forbid, are you feeding it McDonald's because that's easy? Would you prevent it from exercising because it needs to work? It needs to make more eggs, damn it. I think some of you are starting to draw the analogy that I'm hoping that you do. You have a golden goose in your law firm, and that golden goose is you. And if you're like most lawyers, You are overworking yourself. You are feeding yourself poor quality nutrition. You are not giving yourself breaks. And I mean breaks during the day, breaks during the week, breaks during the year, because you can sleep when you'll die. It's time to start thinking of yourself as the golden goose of the law firm and figure out how to treat the golden goose better so that it is more efficient and effective at its golden egg production, because that's what will help you in the long run. By the way, I neglected to mention at the outset that there is a chat. We're in Zoom, so there's a chat that's available. If you have questions or comments along the way, feel free to put them there. Teresa and Abby are monitoring this, and they'll break in and make me aware of questions and comments that are there. So if you want to participate, that's a great way for you to either ask a question or advance a thought. But having a golden goose means taking care of yourself first. It's like when you're on the airplane. On every airline other than Southwest, they tell you that should the oxygen masks drop down from the ceiling because of a loss in cabin pressure, you should put on the mask and begin breathing normally. And if you're traveling with a small child, what do they tell you to do? Put on your mask first and then assist your child. Why do they tell you to do that? Because if you're unconscious and useless, you can't help your child. Same thing in your real life. If you have worked the golden goose to the bone, it's of very limited use to your clients, to your family, and to the business itself. So take care of yourself first is rule number one. I made the mention of Southwest Airlines because on Southwest Airlines, the modification they often make to that announcement is, if you're traveling with a small child, put on your mask first, then help your child. If you're traveling with 2 or more children, decide which one you like best and help them first. So what do we mean by this peak performance? I will confess to you that, first of all, there's a wonderful book that talks about this. And if you're interested in reading the book or listening to the audio book, I recommend it to you. But let's take one simple example. You're all familiar with really high-level, high-performance athletes like Michael Jordan or LeBron James, for example. Now, LeBron James, in the scheme of things as human beings go, is relatively young. As NBA players go, he's relatively old. And it takes him more time to recover from the physical stress of a game than it does, last year's 24-year-old recruit right out of college, because he's older. But the Lakers have figured out, and the Cleveland Cavaliers before them and the Heat before that long ago figured out that there are ways that we can shorten the amount of time that we need to have LeBron, or for that matter, in his day, Michael Jordan, recover more quickly. That's where, things like ice baths and immediate massage with several different people, or with, now these percussive devices like a Theragun, for example. These are all about restoring, these days, LeBron James to his peak performance capability in the shortest amount of time, because the schedule doesn't care that you're a little older than some of your competitors and you need more time to recover. So they've had to learn ways to achieve peak performance in a more rapid, faster, more effective way. But all of these principles can assist with this whole process. Some of it has to do with energy level. And, that, of course, has to do with quality of sleep and so on and so forth. But it requires that we start to think about peak performance as a strategy. I mean, if we're going to adopt, as I hope you will, the idea that there's a golden goose in your law practice, then we need to figure out what we're going to do to help that goose recover from the stress of any individual day, a week, or a trial, and get back to proper peak performance so that we can be of best use to our clients, where we can spend the most effective amount of our time and get paid in an appropriate way to do that. And consider this. How often are we working late into the night when we're tired and we're slow and we have to go back and repeat the work, or we're abstracting a deposition and our mind is wandered for the last 14 pages, and now we got to go back and do those pages again because we weren't really paying attention. Our mind drifted off to something else because we were tired. All of these things feed into that same idea. If you had a way to restore yourself to peak performance in a shorter period of time, you could get a higher level quality of work done and get, therefore, more work done in a shorter period of time. You need to think about fuel for peak performance. McDonald's is not perhaps the best fuel for peak performance, even though it's the easiest thing for you to go and get in some cases. Your own fitness and physical well-being is certainly a part of that, as is your overall health status. I have had lots of lawyers that I've worked with over the years tell me that they're putting off things like annual checkups or dental appointments because they feel like their time gets wasted at the doctor's office. They have an appointment at 10:30 and the doctor is busy and doesn't get to them till 11:15, and they just don't think it's a good use of their time. And the fact of the matter is, almost everything when it comes to your health is better addressed early rather than late. It is truly one of the times that Ben Franklin's maxim that penny wise and pound foolish is directly and completely applicable. Another place that lawyers cut corners when we need to get more time, we stop doing any kind of a spiritual practice because we feel like, I'm going to put my clients before me. I can skip going to church. I can skip the daily meditation. I can skip the daily run or the walk or, whatever that is part of a restorative process. And in the process, what we slowly do is we expend our health and our attention and our ability to deliver for our clients, for our family, and for our team, because we think in the short run, that's a better investment. And I'm here to tell you that it's not. In some cases, our key relationships go away. And I don't know if you saw it, but just yesterday, Vivek Murthy, the Surgeon General of the United States, published an article in the Wall Street Journal about how loneliness and a lack of connectedness as we get older is now linked in several different studies to providing the same negative health effect as a practice of smoking 12 to 14 cigarettes a day. And we're giving these things up. We're giving up key relationships because that requires time. And we're stealing time from everywhere we can find it to try to get more work done. And in the process, what we're really doing is grinding up ourselves to produce more. I think probably the most important element of peak performance is focus and mindset. You've got to change your mindset that working more, that working harder is better. It's not. There are different ways for you to get the work done that don't require that you're the only one pulling the laboring oar. And we have this tool that you were sent in advance. If you don't happen to have it handy, I'm guessing either Abby or Teresa or both will drop it into the chat so that you can download it as a PDF. It's our Burnout to Breakthrough worksheet. Now, I'm going to walk you through this worksheet, and I have two really important requests for you as we go through this. My first request is that you stay with me. Do not run ahead and just kind of try to quickly complete this, because there's some insights I'm going to offer you along the way, and we need to stay together and kind of work at a deliberate pace to get to where we need to go. So my first request is don't work ahead, work with me. Second, and this is really important, this is not a contest. We will not at the end of the call announce a winner of who had the best score, and no one will know your score unless you share it with them. So keep this in mind. All progress, and I mean that literally all progress begins when you start telling yourself the truth. If you claim a higher score on this scorecard as we're going through it, then you're really entitled to. The only person that will suffer is you. And the reason you will suffer is because in giving yourself a score that is too high, you're giving yourself permission not to fix whatever your problem or challenge is with that particular element of the process. So there's no upside to you claiming a high score except that your suffering gets to continue. So my invitation to you is that you consider not trying to get a high score, but rather try to get a realistic score. Now, before we get into this, I also want to point out to you that on the right end of this, there are three little columns, one that says prior, one that says now, one that says plus minus. I want to tell you what those are now because everybody always gets confused about that. What am I supposed to do with that? This is a tool that we use in our Atticus group programs with our groups, and we do this with them from time to time as a check-in device. So what we want them to do is, if they've done the exercise before, retrieve the last version. That's why there's a date up at the upper right corner, so they know what date they did this. They can retrieve the prior version of it. In the prior column, note what their scores were the last time they did this. The now column is the one you're going to use today to record your scores. And the plus minus is if you've done this before, you're essentially doing this short little math game at the end of, did my score improve or get worse on this item since last time? So since you guys, I think for the most part, are doing this for the first time, you can ignore the prior and the plus minus columns. In the future, you might, a month or 3 months from now, might want to get this out and compare it again. And in that case, you will use the prior and the plus minus. So with that said, this, for example, is my coach Steve's version of this on a day that he recently completed it. And he will tell, he's the first one to tell you, designed the worksheet. And he said one of the things he's noticed, he regularly completes this, is his scores go up and down. They don't just permanently go to the right and stay there, because sometimes things happen, or as I like to say, lifes you. And the way it has affected you in some way, you've responded by giving up some of your health or your fitness or your the quality of the food that you're eating or whatever, and your score then is going to slip on that particular column. So he's noticed in doing this multiple times that your scores will go up and down in various different categories. And we'll talk about how you can use and think about that in the future. But for now, let's dig into the worksheet. So the first thing we're going to talk about is your energy level. And this is your overall energy level, not your energy level today on, oh, hey, it's Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. So not just on May 4th, 2023, but your energy level in general. What is it like these days? Not just this moment on this particular day. So you're in the first category. You're considered burned out if your answer is, I'm surrounded by idiots. I am so tired and everyone is stupid. I'm burned out. I suspect all of you have at some point in time uttered some version of those words. Oh, by the way, another good strategy for picking your score here is don't take the score to the right unless every statement in that column is true. If most of them are true, you're still not there. You're in the column to the left. So second column, a category we would call exhausted. I am struggling to stay focused. Each day feels like a slug and I'm frustrated. Third column, sustaining. I am okay. I think there is a possibility that things will be okay. 4, recovered. I am good. Energy levels are strong and I'm interested in taking on a bigger game. And then peak performance. I am grateful and sometimes joyful about everything. And here's an example of column 4 versus column 5. Joyful about everything is not the same as joyful about many things. Those are two different measurements. I am excited about and feeling great about the future. So circle the description that you think best describes you. And in the now column, put the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that corresponds to that. And then we'll move on to peak performance strategies. If you're burned out with a score of 1, your answer is, my strategy is to run hard, run fast, and run long until I can't run further. There must be a finish line somewhere, and I will keep running until I find it or I collapse. By the way, this is another reason that your scores go up and down on this. We all had times in our life, particularly as we're moving into exam time in law school, where that was our strategy. It was simply survive. I'm going to sleep as little as possible. I'm cramming for an exam because I get exactly 1 grade in this entire class. It's for a final exam for the entire semester in one shot. And we're going to work ourselves to the bone. We can do that for 2 or 3 days at a time. Trial lawyers know they can do that for a week or 2 at a time. But you cannot do that all day, every week, every month, every year. There's just not enough of you to do it. Second, exhausted in this peak performance strategies. I'm aware that I may be on the verge of burnout, but I see some time off or at least a recovery plan for a day soon. Let me decode this one for you. This one often manifests itself in a lie that sounds like this. I'll be okay when X is complete, when this brief is done, when this trial is done, when I complete this letter, when I complete this estate plan. And what happens, by the way, when that happens? Well, by the time you get to that, there's a whole bunch of other bombs going off, right? I mean, you never get the relief, but we tell ourselves the lie, I'll be okay when I get this thing done. That's a score of 2. Sustaining in this category, I am getting a balance and starting to recover my energy. I'm hopeful to keep the momentum and not go backward. Frankly, it's pretty difficult to get to here if you've not implemented some strategies, because this answer depends on the idea that I've got a plan that I'm trying out to see if it works. And if you don't have a plan, it's kind of hard to be here. Number 4, recovered. I have a good rhythm of work days and recovery days. This is the LeBron strategy. There's game days and there's recovery days. I crush my work days and enjoy my recovery. I crush my work days and I enjoy my recovery days. Peak performance. I have peak performance focus to my days. I know which days I must perform the best and protect recovery days in advance of my performance. Why? To make sure that I'm at my peak on those days. In other words, we're playing a longer game here. What we're looking at is I need to be at my best there. So what can I do in advance of that to make sure that I'm going to be at a peak level of performance instead of like putting out every fire for the next 4.5 days to make sure that I've got a little bit more attention on that last day. Not the best strategy. Third, fuel for performance. Here we mean nutrition. I am working so hard that I reward myself with food indulgences like a dog performs for a treat. My mouth is for stress relief. That's a 1. Second column, some days I treat my body like a temple. Other days I treat it like a garbage dump. I am inconsistent and do what I can to get by with caffeine and energy drinks. 3, I am progressing. At least half of the time, I am fueling myself with quality nutrition. If you don't know what quality nutrition is, it's kind of hard to be at this level. Recovered, I have a nutrition plan. I know what I'm eating and when, and I am 70% or consistent or higher with my plan. Notice, by the way, we're not expecting perfection here because sometimes life will life you. Peak performance, I have a nutrition plan that helps me focus and perform at my peak 80% of the time or more. I understand my nutrition directly helps me perform at my peak. Fitness and physical well-being. I have no time to exercise. I must work. I need to sacrifice for my practice. Nobody understands how important I am. BMI is BS. I don't care. That'll get you a 1. Number 2, I am making progress. Not thrilled with it, but I am starting. I have a plan to increase my fitness. My BMI is not so good. 3, sustaining. I am doing well. I am consistently exercising. My BMI is above where I need it to be, but it is less than what it was. So I've made progress, in other words. Number 4, recovered. I am consistent with my exercise program. My BMI is normal. I feel good about myself. Peak performance, I am in the best shape of my life. My BMI is normal. And I can talk about my body fat with pride. I am confident in my level of fitness. Oh, that's odd. Huh. Abby, we have the blow up on this. We'll fix that. For now, folks, ignore the headline at the top. And this is my fault. When I was approving the slides, I missed the idea that we should have just the bottom half of the form and then ask the question later. So for now, ignore the question at the top. We're going to come to that in a minute. Next strategy, overall health or status of my health care. 1, I'm recovering from an injury, illness, or dealing with a medical, dental, or physical issue. I'm in some sort of pain. Could even be just mental, right? 2, I am coming out of a health issue. I feel recovered and starting to get confidence to improve my health. 3, I am making progress. I have most of my medical, dental, and physical issues under control. I do have something I need to address. However, I am procrastinating. Why do it now? You could just save that time and work. 4, I feel good. I'm current with all health issues and checkups. I'm ahead of the game. 5, I feel great. I have a team of professionals, including a doctor, helping me proactively improve my health. There are a group of people in Atticus right now working on a program called the Bonus Years by Design, where they are actively planning what they will do with the years past the point in time that most people would have retired because they are projecting and planning to live to be 125 or more. So they are all about this idea of a team of professionals that are helping them with longevity. Spiritual and mindfulness practices. Number 1, I have no time for this stuff. It's voodoo mumbo jumbo. If I did do this, I would lose my edge. By the way, over the years, I've taught, I don't know how many lawyers to meditate. And one of the things that I do when I teach that is I say, now there's a lot of reasons that you have read about or you've heard about meditation and you don't want to do it. Some of you will take the vague sort of out of, well, that seems kind of hippie and woo-woo and weird, and I'm not sure that's for me. And then there's this sophisticated sort of excuse, which is, Well, I have an edge, and my edge requires that I be at at a moment's notice able to pounce and to do this. And I can't afford to be soft. My clients will suffer if that's the case. And when I'm teaching just that course, that I click the button, and the next slide that comes up is a picture of a Marine in full dress uniform, because the Marines now meditate because it makes them better at what they do. So I figure if those guys who have an edge that we all depend on can do this and not lose their edge, I'm going to just guess that lawyers will not lose their edge by having some sort of a spiritual practice. Number two, I am inconsistent. When I do practice, I feel connected to my why and my great lifetime legacy. This is a reference to another Atticus tool that we use called My Great Life, that we use to get people to think about what is it that they want to accomplish in their life other than billing a lot of hours. Because it turns out there's a whole lot more to life than just what you might be doing in the office. Three, about half the time I am embracing my spiritual and/or mindfulness practice. I would like to do more, but I am happy with my progress. Four, I am consistent. I'm practicing 70% of the time and feel like I am living consistently with my why and my great life legacy. Five, I am joyful and grateful. I have a daily practice that is a cornerstone habit of my life. I feel like every day I am living my why and living my great life legacy. Key relationships. You get a 1 if your answer sounds a lot like, did I mention I'm surrounded by idiots? If everyone would just do as I tell them to do, we would all be happier, me included. This is also the kind of thought of, this is the person whose frustration with the office is, I don't know why this person continues to do that. After all, I told them that they should do it a different way. If that's you, you're down in that one category. 2, key relationships. I am struggling with some of my relationships. I need to work on a few key relationships. 3, I am doing well. I feel like I have integrity with my most important relationships. 4, I am proactively working on my most important relationships. Key there is proactive as opposed to just reacting to whatever shows up at the time. By the way, another callback to meditation. One of the best reasons for lawyers to meditate is it gives you this little fraction of a second between something that happens, and it lets you choose how to respond rather than merely reacting on autopilot in anger. Best reason in the world for lawyers to think about doing that, because it makes you a better lawyer. 4, I am proactively working on my most important relationships. 5, I am grateful for some of the amazing relationships in my life. I continue to invest in those relationships. Last strategy, this is your focus. You get a 1 if your answer is somewhere in the category of every day is another day of whack-a-mole. There are problems and crises everywhere. I feel like I will never get ahead and do what I want when I want to do it. I admire the My Great Life Planner. The My Great Life Planner is a tool that we give Atticus group members to help them more effectively target their attention. Because first you learn to manage your time, then you learn to manage your focus and your attention. 2, I know I am reactive and trying to get control of my day. I am seeing some progress. I think about 20% of my time is proactive, and I do what I want when I want. In the case of Atticus group members, I am using the Great Life Planner. 3, I think I am getting a good balance between reactive and proactive focus. I am consistent in using the planner. 4, I am getting ahead of everything. My days and weeks are more focused. I am moving forward more than I am retreating. I use my Great Life Planner 80% of the time. And finally, at the peak level, I understand how to structure my days, weeks, and quarters to maximize my focus. I understand that my performance is the key driving my future, and I use the planner daily. So now is the time for that question at the top of the screen. As you look at this, pick one of your lowest scores and ask yourself the question, what is one small thing you could do to improve just that one strategy over the course of the next 30 days? One strategy, one thing you could do in the next 30 days to improve your score on that item. I'm going to be quiet for a second while you look into that. If you've already done that, if you haven't, keep working on that. But if you've already done that, look at the bottom left. It says top 3 insights. See if there's some pattern you recognize or some aha you get from looking at that going, oh, wow, I never realized that. whatever. That's what those top 3 insight boxes are for you to record your reaction to now seeing the way you've scored yourself in this peak performance realm. If you've identified one small action you could take in one category, put it in one of those top 3 action boxes. And if you discover that in less than 30 days, you've already moved the needle on that one, find 2 more and put them in those other 3 boxes and try to work on those. So I want to invite you to make a commitment to peak performance. And this is not something you can do lightly because it requires that you decide that you're interested in trying to find a strategic approach to what your personal peak performance would look like, much like LeBron James and his trainers have done. They've analyzed everything and said, what can we do to help him at his current age recover, in a day or 2 instead of a week? And there are opportunities available for you in every one of those strategies that if you had complete control and total commitment, and I'm not suggesting you need to go from 0 to 5 in everything all at once, because that is a recipe to fail. But you need to get in touch with the idea of, if I wanted to move the needle on everything, what's involved in doing that? And start to think about that even as you decide that you're going to focus your attention for the next 30 days on just one of those. Think about why your peak performance would have a positive impact on you, your life, or your law firm, and maybe what that impact might be. The reason you want to do that is that it'll give you some momentum, some fuel, some commitment or reason to do this. Nobody goes about making change in their life lightly, because it's not fun and it's not easy, and it takes energy and time and commitment. The reason health clubs are full on January 2 and empty on March 2 is because the people that just showed up on January 2 and saying it'd be a good idea if I got into shape, that was the vague commitment that they made, and they didn't have the compelling reason to do it. The people that are still there on March 2, those are the ones whose doctors told them, if you don't do this, you will die. And those people had a commitment and they're still there. If you were to commit to improve your peak performance consistently over the course of the year, how might that benefit you or your law firm or your family? There's another place you could look for motivation. And go way, way out there. What if you made a 10-year game out of this? What could you do to your lifespan, or what Dr. Peter Attia calls your health span? What could it do for your cognitive improvement to take peak performance measures that, for example, are designed to prevent or forestall things like Alzheimer's disease? What might that mean for your life? And by the way, every one of those strategies has at its core this notion that your peak performance is also about making your law firm better, making the services that you provide to your clients and your skill set better all the way around. Every single one of them has the side effect of also reducing your stress levels. Having a great law practice and having a great life is more than, and requires more than just being a great lawyer. You need legal skills and business skills if you want to have a profitable practice. And I love the way this chart is designed. The legal skills are at the bottom. If you're not a good lawyer, you're going to fail in selling legal services. That's just a given. But just being good at that doesn't make all the difference in the world, because you need to learn to focus. You need to learn to attract high quality, high value clients, not the ones that drive you crazy and suck up your energy, but the good ones. You need to learn how to build a great team. You need to learn how to manage the cash flow that comes from having a successful team. And that then leads to what you see at the top of the chart: more revenue, more income, more control, more freedom, and a bigger impact that you're able to have for yourself, for your clients, and with your practice. If your days look like this, if your jelly bean jar is full, your to-do list is 97 items and counting, you don't have room to sharpen your focus, to do your marketing, to build and support a great team, to manage the cash flow. You're in permanent juggler mode, and you're not going to find the time to fit in things like how to improve your peak performance, because stopping is not a realistic option when your jelly bean jar looks like that. To grow your practice, you have to adopt strategies that allow you to protect your time so that you have margin that is available for you to strategically deploy, whether it's on your health or an individual case or helping a team member or whatever. So building a great practice is about doing all of these things collectively. There is no light switch. There is no magic bullet. There's no pill I can offer you, or I would, that would make things better for you. But it begins with you choosing to allocate your time and your attention. We're offering a workshop on May 24th. It's a 90-minute workshop. Today's is 45 to introduce you to some of these concepts. But on the 24th, we're going to do a 90-minute deep dive on how to achieve high-level performance and how to break through burnout when you're getting there, and how to recognize that it's coming and head it off. For most folks, that's going to cost them $99 to attend that webinar. Because you chose to attend this one, we're going to give you half off. If you use the code BURNOUT50 when you sign up for that webinar, half the price will go away automatically. We do have a couple of other workshops coming up. Our practice growth program is our signature program for lawyers that want to learn to build those 4 foundational systems to time and focus management, marketing consistently, in attracting high quality cases and high quality clients, how to build, support, and keep a great team, and how to manage your cash flow for growth and continuing to build a law firm that can help more and more people and allow you, ironically, to spend less time in it each and every year. We have an upcoming Double Your Revenue workshop. If you're interested in that, the advertising that you're starting to receive when you put your hand up to express the interest in this, whether it was on Instagram or whether it was an email, I think the next one is coming up in mid-June, and I don't have the date right in front of me. I want to say it's June 17th in Orlando. The Double Your Revenue workshop is something that was created more than 20 years ago. It won a Lawyers Weekly Award for the most innovative program. It's a one-day workshop, and you leave the workshop with a complete, detailed plan with dozens of ideas to double your revenue. Most of the people who complete that program will double their revenue in 18 to 24 months. Another third will in the following 12 months. And the third are still busy thinking about it and trying to decide if this is really something that they want to do. Double your revenue does not mean double your headache, double your pain, double your suffering. It means only more money. Lastly, we've got an upcoming workshop on strategic referrals and how to market yourself to build a law firm that grows based on referrals rather than just search engine advertising alone. Our practice growth program meets in both San Francisco and Orlando. Here's the dates for the Double Your Revenue. It's June 16 in San Francisco and June 23rd in Orlando. And the upcoming webinar on strategic referrals will be on June 20th. So that's what we packaged up to put together for you. I don't know if you have questions, or Abby, Teresa, if you want to call out some of the questions that were there. I've got a minute or two left before we stop the recording and stop the formal part of the webinar for this afternoon, but I do have some extra time, and I will hang around and answer, live with your video, any of the questions that anybody has. So Abby, is there something teed up, or Teresa, something teed up that you think we need to deal with?
I don't see anything in the chat box, but if anybody has any questions, feel free to unmute or ask to unmute, and we can get those answered for you.
Hey, William, if you have a second when we're done, hang around, because I wanted to talk to you for a second if you got the time.
I do.
Cool. Anybody have any questions? Or did I put you all to sleep? Is anybody inspired to try to do this? Can you see some room where you might pick one of those things and just improve that one thing and move the needle in the next 30 days? So Steve says absolutely. Steve, what do you think that might be? What could you do to move the needle on one of those that you think you could pull off? You're gonna, actually, Abby, we should probably be in the mode now where we should unmute them and let them talk if you can do that.
Yes, let me see if I can do that.
Oh yeah, Absolutely, Stephen. The wins for meditation are all over the maps. And by the way, if any of you are at all like spooked about that, or you think that it's going to cost you an edge or make you soft or something, I strongly encourage you to go read or listen to Dan Harris's fantastic book, 10% Happier. If you don't know him, he's a hard-hitting journalist from ABC who tells his story of how he came to meditation. And literally every chapter, every step in his journey, for me at least, was an opportunity where he would express in writing, and I'm reading on the page the exact doubts that's in my head. I'm going, well, that's a bunch of BS because I turn the page and he'd say, and I thought this was a bunch of BS because, and it's the same reason. And that delivered a lot of credibility to me. And by the time I finished the book, I thought, well, I'm willing to try this. And I've discovered that it made it absolutely a mind-boggling and substantial difference for me. Maria, Mark, there is a coach, a strategic coach, Reggie Metzger, in relation, not that I know of, but I will tell you this. In the Middle Ages, when people from Europe started having surnames, a lot of European families tended to take as the family name whatever the husband's job was. Metzger is German for butcher, so there's lots of us.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks so much for the presentation.
My pleasure. I hope that you guys will do something with this and not just think about it.